Are you looking for an edge, flexible income, and immediate professional respect? Discover the hidden opportunity of becoming a public official with the book, Becoming a Notary by Derrick Spruill. This beginner's guide provides the universal roadmap to launch your new career. You will learn the core mission of deterring fraud, the essential tools of the trade, and exactly how to protect yourself while building a respected business. Get your copy of Becoming a Notary on Amazon, and step into a rewarding profession.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge. We are Marylyn and Eddie.
And today is a money-making Monday. We are focusing on VIP wealth management, specifically capturing high-net-worth clients and commanding premium retainer fees for white-glove privacy and service.
Right, because if you want to operate as a savvy strategist in the high-net-worth wealth management niche, you have to understand the mechanics of this world. Our mission today is to synthesize a massive stack of intelligence covering private banking, family offices, concierge services, and some seriously intense compliance frameworks.
Yeah, we want to figure out exactly how wealth is managed, protected, and catered to at the absolute highest levels. It is a highly secretive, bespoke world.
It really is. Imagine for a second that you are a billionaire. You've spent a lifetime building this massive enterprise. You've navigated brutal market corrections, outsmarted competitors, and insulated your fortune with the best legal minds on the planet.
You've got trusts within trusts, offshore structures.
Exactly. You feel entirely secure. But your greatest vulnerability isn't a stock market crash. It isn't a hostile takeover.
No, it's not.
Your entire financial privacy, your family's safety, and the security of your assets could be completely compromised by, a single unglamorous PDF form.
A form filled out by the catering company you hired for your daughter's wedding on a yacht.
Yes, because if the wealth management firm handling that invoice doesn't have an airtight, multi-layered supplier onboarding protocol, a bad actor can just slip a fraudulent routing number into that catering invoice.
Right, and before you even cut the cake, millions of dollars have been wired to a shell account. Your personal financial data is suddenly exposed to the dark web.
The fortress doesn't fall because the walls were weak, right? It falls because someone didn't check the ID of the guy delivering the bread.
That is the terrifying, hyper-complex reality we are exploring today. It's a world that operates on a completely different set of physical laws than normal finance.
Totally different law.
We're looking at how family offices operate behind closed doors. Why the world's top wealth managers are basically becoming high-end concierges just to survive.
And the math. The intense, unforgiving mathematics of how they price these retainers, plus the military-grade security required to protect a billionaire's data. Because, if you look at standard financial services today, it operates very much like a high-end vending machine.
A vending machine?
Yeah.
I like that analogy.
Right. It's built for scale and efficiency. You log into your app, you deposit your money, you select an index fund or apply for a standard mortgage. The machine processes it cleanly.
It's transactional.
Completely.
Yeah.
It doesn't know who you are, doesn't care what your childhood was like, and it certainly doesn't know where you are going on vacation next week.
Because it doesn't need to. It just executes the transaction. And, that vending machine model works perfectly well for 99% of the population.
Sure.
But when you step into the bespoke world of serving the ultra-wealthy, that vending machine just shatters. You are suddenly walking into the atelier of a Savile Row tailor.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
They don't just ask for your measurements. They know your lifestyle. They know how you walk. They know the climate of the city you're traveling to next month.
They've already selected a fabric that breathes well in that specific humidity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All before you even open the door to the shop.
It's anticipatory, not reactive. Which means before we can even begin to understand the services being provided, we have to understand the people walking through that door.
Right, the client.
We throw terms around in everyday conversation like millionaire or wealthy. But the sources make it clear that in this industry, the segmentation is incredibly rigid.
The terminology has to be rigid. The financial mechanics completely break down and had to be rebuilt at each specific tier. The first tier identified in the data is the high net worth individual, or HNWI.
Okay, and what defines that?
This is someone with $1 million to $5 million in liquid investable assets.
Okay, that word liquid is doing massive heavy lifting there.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you own a $4 million house in San Francisco and you have $100,000 in your checking account, you might feel wealthy.
But you do not qualify as a high net worth individual to these institutions.
Right, because a house is not readily deployable capital.
Exactly. These metrics deliberately exclude primary residences, collectible art, vintage cars, and consumables. They're measuring the ammunition you can actually fire into the markets.
Got it. So what's the next tier?
Once your liquid assets sit between $5 million and $30 million, you enter the multi-millionaire tier. This is where standard retail banking stops working.
Because the complexity goes up.
Right. You start needing alternative investments, enhanced tax planning, and sophisticated trust structures to shield that wealth from aggressive taxation and liability.
But the sources indicate that the real paradigm shift, like the moment the financial physics truly change, happens when you cross the $30 million liquid threshold.
Yes, the ultra-high net worth individual, the UHNWI.
$30 million in liquid assets.
At that level, the complexity of your existence becomes exponential. A $2 million portfolio just needs growth. A $35 million portfolio needs a multinational corporate chassis.
You're dealing with cross-border tax obligations?
Exactly, because you own properties in 3 different countries. You need multi-jurisdictional estate planning. You need multi-generational succession strategies so your grandchildren don't squander the wealth.
The sheer administrative burden of managing that money becomes a full-time enterprise.
It really does. And the expectation of service scales right alongside that complexity.
Which brings us to the phrase white glove service. You hear this term tossed around all the time. I see software companies charging $50 a month, promising white glove onboarding.
Yeah, the term has been completely diluted.
So what does it actually mean in this context?
To understand it, you have to look at its historical etymology. White glove comes quite literally from the physical white gloves worn by English butlers in aristocratic estates. The gloves weren't just for show. They were a functional symbol of meticulous care, designed to ensure that delicate silver and household objects weren't tarnished by the oils on human hands.
It represented absolute respect and dedication to protecting the estate.
Precisely. And the term concierge has a similarly ancient functional root.
Where does that come from?
It traces back to medieval France. The comte de cierge, which translates roughly to the keeper of the candles, evolved into the castle porter.
The castle porter.
Right. This was the trusted servant who held the keys to the castle rooms and fulfilled the incredibly complex, bespoke personal needs of visiting royalty. They were the ultimate problem solvers.
So how did medieval castle porters and English butlers morph into Wall Street wealth management?
Through a very deliberate evolution of risk and leverage. In the 19th century, Swiss institutions like Credit Suisse and UBS began applying these hospitality concepts to finance.
To protect the assets of Europe's industrial aristocrats.
Yes. They realized that extreme wealth required extreme discretion. Fast forward to post-World War II America, and private banks started offering sophisticated tax structuring to global families.
To help them navigate new, aggressive post-war tax codes.
Exactly. But the real shift happened in the 1980s and 90s.
With deregulation.
Yes, deregulation allowed banking institutions to bundle traditional asset management with lifestyle management. Suddenly, a Euro banker wasn't just executing stock trades.
They were financing the construction of your mega yacht.
Right. Structuring the loan for your private jet, leveraging their network to get your children into elite private boarding schools. The financial and the personal became permanently intertwined.
Before we dig deeper into the modern differences, let's take a quick commercial break.
Absolutely. We want to encourage all of you to buy the Notary Knowledge books by Derrick Spruill and visit the Notary Knowledge website.
Yes, and we also want to add a promotion about the One Ledger Notary e-journal on the Apple App Store. It was crafted by the magnificent Workz team.
It's an incredible tool, and you can use code NotaryKnow50 to get 50% off the first-year annual plan. That's NotaryKnow50.
And while you're at it, make sure to check out our video podcast, No Notary, with Eddie Montes Travis and Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary. Lots of great resources there.
Okay, let's bring this back to the modern day. You wanted to challenge that diluted marketing term of white glove service.
Yeah, what is the functional, mechanical difference between excellent traditional customer service and true white glove service for an ultra high net worth client?
The fundamental difference comes down to the mechanism of engagement. Traditional customer service, no matter how polite, is reactive.
You experience a problem, you call a hotline, a ticket is generated.
And eventually, the problem is solved. White glove service is fundamentally proactive and anticipatory. It requires deep data integration to solve a problem before the client even realizes it exists.
Give me a mechanical example of that.
Okay, in a traditional setup, you miss your connecting flight. You call the airline, you wait on hold, and they rebook you on a flight 6 hours later.
Sam.
In a true white-glove wealth management concierge model, the firm is tracking your flight path in real time against global weather patterns.
Wow.
The moment the software detects a high probability that your first flight will be delayed by thunderstorms, the concierge automatically books you a backup seat on a different airline.
Before the delay even happens.
Yes, they arrange a car service to meet you at a different terminal and send you a single text message explaining the updated logistics before your original plane even takes off.
That requires an entirely different corporate structure to execute. I mean, you can't do that if your employees have to ask their manager for permission to spend money on a backup flight.
And that is the operational secret. Traditional services measure success with transactional metrics. How fast was the whole ticket closed?
All right.
White glove services measure relational metrics. Is the long-term trust deepening? To achieve that, they empower frontline agents.
So the person handling your account has direct pre-approved budget authority.
Exactly. They can instantly resolve an issue without navigating multi-level corporate approvals. They don't ask for permission to fix your life. They just fix it.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, once a family crosses that $30 million threshold, even the best private bank with the most empowered concierge desk sometimes isn't enough.
Because the family's needs become so uniquely complex.
Right. They effectively say, forget the bank, we're going to build our own bank. Which brings us to the rise of the family office.
A family office is a private, bespoke entity established for one singular purpose: to manage the holistic, comprehensive needs of an ultra-high net worth family.
It brings everything under one roof. We aren't just talking about a team of stock pickers.
No, a family office handles investment strategy, yes, but also estate planning, tax optimization, succession governance, charitable foundations, and all lifestyle services.
And the sheer volume of capital flowing into these private entities is staggering. The sources project that global family office wealth is going to exceed $9 trillion by 2030.
$9 trillion. That is a 189% increase from 2019, operating entirely outside the traditional retail banking system.
It rivals the GDP of major nations. But what makes family offices truly fascinating isn't just the amount of money they control, it's the internal operational dynamic.
Because when you work at a family office, you aren't dealing with institutional shareholders who only care about quarterly earnings. You are dealing with family dynamics.
You're dealing with blood.
Precisely. The sources paint a brilliant picture of this. A family office professional has to be part financial wizard, part family therapist, and part international diplomat.
You can't just segment your clients into different risk profiles because they all sit at the same Thanksgiving dinner table.
Let's unpack the scenario the sources provided. It perfectly illustrates the impossible tightrope these professionals walk.
Okay, lay it out.
Imagine you are leading the investment committee for a family office. You sit down in the boardroom. At the head of the table is the 65-year-old patriarch. He built a $500 million manufacturing business from scratch.
He understands supply chains, margin, and he demands granular operational analysis of every single dollar deployed.
Right. He wants to see the spreadsheet detailing the EBITDA margins of the mid-cap industrial company you want to acquire. But sitting to his left is his 30-year-old son, who studied art history and runs a gallery.
A completely different mindset.
Totally. The moment you start explaining the mechanics of private equity co-investment structures, which is when the family invests directly into a company alongside a private equity fund to avoid paying management fees, the son's eyes completely glaze over.
Because that requires massive due diligence. He doesn't care about capital calls or hurdle rates.
He cares about capital preservation and art assets. But then, sitting to the right is the 28-year-old daughter. She just graduated from a top-tier business school.
And she doesn't want to hear about her father's industrial supply chains.
No, she is grilling the team on ESG integration, environmental, social, and governance. And she isn't just asking for some generic green mutual fund.
She wants a functional breakdown of how the family office is actively forcing its portfolio companies to conduct carbon audits and improve their labor practices.
Exactly. Now, as the family office professional, you have to run a meeting that satisfies all three of them simultaneously.
That sounds like a nightmare.
You have to translate complex hedge fund derivative strategies into a language the patriarch respects, validate the son's focus on cultural investments, and mathematically prove to the daughter that ESG integration won't cannibalize the overall returns.
all while perhaps having a private sidebar with that same daughter, explaining why the trust's legal parameters won't allow her to liquidate $10 million in principal to buy a mega mansion in Aspen.
Right. It requires a level of emotional intelligence and psychological agility that you simply cannot learn in a standard finance degree.
And because of that unique emotional structure, family offices deploy capital very differently than traditional institutional investors. If we compare a family office to a private equity firm, the differences are night and day.
They operate on entirely different gravitational laws. Private equity firms are institutional machines. They raise capital from limited partners like pension funds, and they operate under incredibly strict fixed timelines.
A PE fund has a lifespan.
Yes. Their sole mandate is to generate the highest possible internal rate of return, or IRR. To do that, they rely heavily on financial engineering stripping costs, taking on massive leverage.
And they are forced to exit the investment either by selling the company or taking it public, usually within 5 to 7 years.
The clock starts ticking the second the check clears. It's an aggressive, relentless countdown.
Whereas family offices represent what the industry calls patient capital.
Yes, they are investing their own money. They don't have limited partners demanding liquidity in 5 years. They operate with a multi-generational, long-term perspective.
So if they invest in a company, they are perfectly happy to hold that equity for 20 years if it aligns with their values and provides steady, compounding growth.
Which explains a massive trend in the current market. If you are the founder of a successful mid-sized company and you want to take some chips off the table, you might actually turn away a higher valuation from a private equity firm in favor of a family office.
Founders do this all the time, don't they?
They do, because imagine you've spent 15 years building a software company. It's your life's work. If you sell a controlling stake to a PE firm, they are going to implement their playbook.
They'll replace your management team.
Cut research and development to boost short-term margins, load the balance sheet with debt, and flip it to a competitor in 5 years.
You lose your legacy.
Completely. But if you take an investment from a family office, you're getting patient capital. Family offices often prefer taking minority stakes.
They don't want to run your company. They want you to keep running it.
Exactly. They act as mentors, offering strategic guidance rooted in the patriarch's own experience of building a business. They allow the founder to grow sustainably without the pressure of a 5-year ticking clock.
They align with the founder's vision rather than engineering a quick financial exit.
Okay, so if you're a founder, or if you're a wealth manager with a brilliant investment product, you desperately want family office capital. It's patient, it's vast, and it's strategic.
The problem is, they are notoriously invisible. You can't just look up a list of family offices on Google and start cold calling them.
No, they are designed to be impenetrable.
So how does anyone actually pitch them?
The sources make one thing abundantly clear. Mass market B2B acquisition protocols will fail immediately and spectacularly in the UHNW space.
You cannot run a LinkedIn ad campaign targeting billionaires.
Right. You have to navigate the gatekeepers. The UHNW ecosystem relies on a highly structured network of trusted intermediaries.
We are talking about top-tier private bankers, trust and estate attorneys, boutique M&A advisors, and specialized CPAs.
And winning over those gatekeepers isn't like the old days. You can't just take an attorney out for a steak dinner, hand them some golf tickets, and secure a pipeline of billionaire referrals.
Because the regulatory and compliance environment has completely eliminated that handshake culture.
Today, those relationships must be legally codified. If a CPA is going to refer a family office client to your wealth management firm, you need formal referral agreements or joint ventures in place.
But beyond the paperwork, you have to offer genuine reciprocal value to the gatekeeper.
You might co-author a piece of complex tax research with them, or offer to handle the administrative burden of aggregating data for their clients. You have to make the gatekeepers look brilliant to their client.
Let's assume you do all that. You navigate the gatekeepers, you prove your value, and you actually secure a meeting inside the family office.
The sources outline 10 specific, unbreakable rules for pitching this demographic.
What is the absolute first thing you have to understand when you walk into that room?
You have to instantly recognize the divide between the professional investment lead and the family principal.
Because they evaluate you on different metrics.
Entirely different. The professional investment officer, who likely came from Goldman Sachs or a major hedge fund, is managing the quantitative due diligence. They want to see your Sharpe ratios, your risk models, and your operational infrastructure.
Or they want the math.
They want the math. But the family principal, the patriarch or the daughter, is often the ultimate decision maker. and they are evaluating your character.
They want to know if your investment philosophy aligns with their family's legacy goals.
Right. If you pitch the principal like they are a math quant, you will lose them. If you pitch the investment lead purely on emotion and legacy, they will instantly veto you as unserious.
You have to simultaneously speak two different languages. The text also highlighted a massive technical trap that people fall into during these pitches.
Yes. Tax-efficient structuring.
Right, because you can have the best returns in the world, but if you don't explicitly address tax-efficient structuring in your presentation, you are dead on arrival.
Because of the underlying nature of the capital. If you pitch a university endowment or a pension fund, you are pitching an entity that often enjoys tax-exempt status.
If they make $10 million on your investment, they largely keep $10 million.
But a family office is highly exposed to aggressive taxation. If they make that same $10 million, depending on the jurisdiction and the vehicle, they might lose $4 million of it to capital gains and corporate taxes.
So your gross return means literally nothing to them.
Exactly. Only the net after-tax return matters. If you walk into a family office pitching a massive theoretical return, but you haven't mathematically factored in the tax implications of the specific legal vehicle you were using, or the jurisdiction the asset is held in,
You have just broadcasted that you do not understand their daily reality. You haven't done the work.
it fundamentally changes the nature of the pitch. Pitching a standard private equity firm is basically a rapid-fire job interview. Here are the numbers, here is the operational leverage, here's the exit multiple.
You either hit the metrics or you don't. But pitching a family office is much more like courting a spouse.
That is a very apt comparison. You can't just pitch the product. You have to prove that your fundamental values align with their culture.
You have to play an incredibly long game, leading with value rather than a hard sell.
And here's a fascinating point. The sources state that even if they pass on your deal, even if they say no, you still have to professionally ask for referrals to other families in their network.
Because the network itself is the most valuable asset.
Yes. And that long game dictates the entire marketing strategy for firms operating in this space. They don't do mass social media blasts.
Their marketing pillars are built on discretion, stewardship, and proven track records of customization.
When they host an event, it isn't a massive conference in a Vegas ballroom. It is a highly curated, private salon dinner with 12 people, featuring a bespoke briefing from a geopolitical expert.
It is gated, high-touch, and profoundly exclusive.
Let's take another quick break before we move into the actual lifestyle management side of things.
Sure. We want to remind you to check out our video podcast, No Notary, with Eddie Montes Travis, and of course, Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary.
Great stuff in both of those. Okay, so let's fast forward. You've played the long game, you've survived the due diligence, you've aligned with the family's values, and you've won the account.
You are now managing a portion of this ultra-wealthy family's fortune.
But here is where the narrative takes a surprising turn.
Yeah.
The sources suggest that once you win this clientele, generating stellar investment returns is no longer enough to keep them.
Delivering alpha is basically just the table stakes. To actually retain them, you have to manage the physical reality of their lives.
Which brings us to the explosion of the concierge economy within wealth management.
And the data supporting this is overwhelming. Surveys show that investors with over $30 million rank concierge services as the single most important non-financial offering a firm can provide.
More important than philanthropic advice. More important than tax preparation.
Why is that?
Because it targets a different psychological need. Returns and tax optimization are transactional. They are numbers on a page. Concierge services shift the relationship from transactional to deeply emotional.
When a wealth manager flawlessly executes the logistics of a client's life, they remove friction.
And for someone who already has unlimited capital, the removal of friction is the absolute ultimate luxury. It drives retention and organic referrals in a way that beating a benchmark index simply cannot achieve.
When people hear concierge, they tend to picture, someone at a hotel desk scoring tickets to a sold-out Broadway show or getting a reservation at a Michelin star restaurant.
But the scope we are talking about here is vastly more complex. We are talking about full-scale lifestyle infrastructure.
Right. It includes sourcing off-market luxury real estate, managing the payroll for the client's domestic staff across 3 different homes,
Coordinating global private aviation, establishing family governance structures, arranging complex personal security details.
Let's look at some real-world scenarios to ground this, because this isn't just about glamour. It's about crisis management and intense problem-solving.
Let's use some specific situations. Take a scenario with, say, Amanda in South Carolina.
A safety bail situation.
Exactly. Say a principal's child gets into legal trouble or finds themselves in an unsafe situation requiring immediate legal extraction and physical safety measures.
Standard banking does not have an emergency hotline for safety bail.
But a true white-glove concierge desk does. They immediately deploy a local fixer, retain specialized legal counsel in South Carolina, arrange secure transport, and resolve the situation before it ever hits the press.
What about something more logistical, like Omar in Michigan? He had his bag stolen.
A stolen bag for a UHNW client isn't just an inconvenience. It can be a massive security risk if it contains corporate laptops or passports.
So what does the wealth manager do?
The concierge team instantly steps in. They track the device remotely to wipe it. They liaise with local authorities in Michigan. They arrange emergency passport replacement. And they literally have a new bag with duplicate personal items delivered to Omar's hotel within hours.
Or take Chloe in Arizona, a sensitive ID photo issue.
Right. Sometimes principals need specialized credentials, but going to a standard government facility is a privacy risk. The firm arranges for a mobile, secure biometric and ID photo unit to arrive discreetly at her estate in Arizona.
It's all about minimizing exposure. Speaking of exposure, what about Brian in North Carolina? He needed immediate physical protection.
That's a huge part of this. If a client receives a threat or feels exposed, the concierge desk doesn't tell them to call the police. They instantly deploy private, vetted security details to Brian's location in North Carolina to secure the perimeter while conducting threat assessments.
And it extends to cyber, too, like Rachel in Colorado. Her Gmail account was compromised.
A compromised personal email for a billionaire is a 5-alarm fire. The concierge team's cybersecurity vendor immediately steps in, locks down Rachel's network, audits the breach to ensure no wire instructions were altered, and scrubs her digital footprint.
The wealth manager isn't just providing a service, they are compressing absolute chaos into a coherent, invisible plan. The client just sees a seamless reality.
And for high-profile public figures or celebrities, the complexity doubles, because as the text explicitly notes, privacy is the service.
What does that mean mechanically? Privacy is the service.
It means the logistics must be designed to avoid observation entirely. It involves arranging discrete tarmac arrivals where the client goes straight from the plane to a waiting car without ever entering a terminal.
It requires what the industry calls rapid rescoping.
Yes. If a high-profile client is scheduled to stay at a specific villa, and a member of the staff leaks that location to the paparazzi, the concierge team must pivot the entire itinerary within minutes.
Secure a new location, deploy decoys, and move the client securely without them ever feeling panicked.
I know you want to play devil's advocate here, though.
I do, because as a wealth manager, your core competency is capital allocation. You spent a decade analyzing macroeconomic trends and corporate balance sheets. Isn't stepping into book flights, hire bodyguards for Brian, or fix Rachel's Gmail completely diluting your financial expertise?
Are you just becoming an overpaid travel agent?
Basically.
It's a natural objection, but it fundamentally misunderstands the psychology of extreme wealth.
Yeah.
For the UHNW client, capital is abundant. What is violently scarce is time, privacy, and trust.
Okay, so if a wealth manager says, I only handle your portfolio, you deal with the travel agent for your flights,
then they remain just one of many vendors in the client's life. They're easily replaceable if another manager offers a slightly lower fee. But if they handle the flights, the security, the payroll, the hacked emails,
they cease to be a vendor.
They become the indispensable central nervous system of the client's entire existence. By solving those non-investment pain points, the wealth manager creates an impenetrable moat around the client.
It creates a level of stickiness that makes it virtually impossible for a competitor to poach them, regardless of what the market is doing.
But the stickiness comes at a massive cost. Delivering limitless, 247 bespoke service across global time zones, requiring seasoned professionals and rapid response technology, is brutally expensive.
How do wealth management firms actually price these services? Because if you aren't careful, you could easily spend more money servicing the client than you make managing their portfolio.
This challenge is driving a massive transition in the industry. Historically, wealth management relied heavily on commission-based models.
But commissions are problematic for this tier of wealth.
They incentivize advisors to push high-commission financial products, which creates an inherent structural conflict of interest.
You're always wondering, are they recommending this fund because it's good for me or because it pays for their new boat?
Exactly. To eliminate that friction, the industry has aggressively shifted toward retainer fee-based financial planning.
A retainer completely aligns the firm's financial interests with the client's outcomes. The client is paying a premium for continuous, objective, conflict-free advice and access.
And the raw cost of managing this access is astronomical.
Let's break down the baseline economics from the sources. If a family wants to run their own single-family office and SFO, it costs them roughly $3 million annually just to keep the lights on.
And if the office is managing over $1 billion in assets, that operational cost scales up to $6.6 million a year.
The staggering part is that 60 to 70% of that budget is purely personnel costs.
Because you have to hire top-tier talent across multiple disciplines: tax, legal, investment, and lifestyle.
Which is why we are seeing a surge in virtual family offices, or VFOs.
Right. Instead of building the infrastructure from scratch, families are outsourcing to specialized firms on premium retainers, which might cost them between $400,000 and $700,000 a year.
They get the institutional scale and the white glove service without the multi-million-dollar payroll and HR nightmare.
So within these structures, how are the specific concierge services actually billed? The industry relies on 4 primary pricing models, depending on the client's usage.
The first is a transactional model, paper request.
This might cost anywhere from $50 to over $300 per task. It's flexible, with no long-term commitment.
The second is hourly, ranging from 75 TAs to $250 plus per hour. This is ideal for defined, contained projects, like relocating a family to a new city.
But what about clients who need constant access?
That moves into the monthly retainer, usually between $1,000 and $5,000 plus per month, providing predictable, ongoing support.
And at the absolute apex, you have the annual membership. This is the true, unbounded white glove tier, ranging from $5,000 to well over $100,000 a year for all-inclusive proactive lifestyle management and VIP access.
This brings us to a massive operational vulnerability for the firms offering these retainers. Think of a retainer like opening an all-you-can-eat buffet.
The buffet analogy is perfect for this.
If you calculate the entry price of your buffet based on what the average reasonable person eats, you'll make a nice profit. But if you open your doors and a busload of competitive eaters walks in, they will literally eat you into bankruptcy in a single afternoon.
If a wealth firm offers a flat, unlimited concierge retainer, what happens when a highly demanding billionaire client starts requesting rapid rescoping, private jet routing, and estate staffing every single day?
The firm will bleed money instantly, which is exactly why elite firms absolutely never guess at their pricing. They don't just pick a number that sounds premium.
The sources outline a rigorous, unyielding mathematical formula that firms must use to calculate their retainer floor price to prevent that exact scope creep.
Walk me through the mechanics of that math, because a lot of businesses fail right here.
The formula is straightforward but non-negotiable. The minimum retainer price equals the total monthly costs divided by the inverse of the target profit margin.
Okay, let's ground that with real numbers. Let's say a firm calculates that it costs them exactly $2,000 a month in direct costs, which means staff hours, specialized software licenses, and vendor fees just to service a specific UHNW client's account.
And the firm mandates that they must maintain a 40% profit margin to stay viable.
The amateur mistake is to just add 40% to the $2,000 and charge $2,800.
Exactly, because that mathematically yields a much lower margin. You have to take the $2,000 cost and divide it by 0.60.
Since 0.60 is 1 minus the 0.40 target margin.
Right. So 2,000 divided by 0.6.
Which equals $3,333.33.
That is the absolute minimum floor price. If the salesperson signs a contract with that client for $3,000 a month, they might think they're bringing in revenue, but they have structurally locked the firm into operating at a suppressed margin that cannot support white glove delivery.
And in reality, the elite concierge agencies aim much higher. They target 55 to 60% delivery margins to ensure they have the buffer required to maintain the illusion of limitless service.
So they have the math dialed in. They are profitable, they are providing incredible anticipatory service, and they are managing every granular detail of a billionaire's existence.
But that massive, sprawling, scope-managing global travel itineraries, the payroll for domestic staff, sensitive health data for insurance, and the beneficial ownership of trust structures leads to a terrifying reality regarding data security.
This is where the veneer of luxury meets the cold, hard reality of risk. When a single firm holds the literal keys to an ultra-wealthy family's entire life, back-office compliance ceases to be administrative paperwork.
It becomes a matter of absolute survival.
And it starts with a foundational legal architecture. A lot of people assume that if you are managing a billionaire's money, you just sign a standard non-disclosure agreement and get to work.
But the sources are explicit that standard boilerplate NDAs completely fail in this space. They are functionally useless.
Standard NDAs are far too vague to hold up against the complexities of UHNW wealth. To properly protect this magnitude of data, you need NDAs structured around 9 specific, highly customized clauses.
Let's dig into the mechanics of those clauses, because they aren't just legal jargon, they dictate behavior.
They absolutely do. First, you need a hyper-specific definition of confidential information. You can't just say all data.
You have to define exactly what constitutes the family's intellectual property and personal exposure.
You must specify the exact term of confidentiality and strictly define authorized representatives.
Meaning, if you hire an outside accountant to look at the books, does the NDA cover them automatically, or do they need a separate agreement?
Exactly. And the sources highlight a clause that is fascinating. Compelled disclosure.
How does that mechanically work?
Imagine the wealth management firm is suddenly subpoenaed by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, as part of an industry-wide investigation. A standard NDA might break down here or force the firm to illegally withhold documents.
A compelled disclosure clause dictates exactly the choreographed steps the firm must take.
It legally mandates that the firm must inform the billionaire client immediately that a subpoena was received, allowing the client's own legal team time to file injunctions or limit the scope of the data handover before the firm complies.
It prevents the firm from just panicking and handing over the server.
Yes. The clauses also mandate strict protocols for the return or disruption of information when the relationship eventually ends, because risk doesn't end when the contract does.
And it outlines severe limits on interaction with the client's employees to prevent the firm from poaching the family's top talent or inadvertently leaking information to the household staff.
The regulatory pressure surrounding this data is intensifying at an unprecedented rate. The SEC is not playing games anymore, especially regarding third-party vendors.
We have to look at the recent amendments to SEC Regulation SP, which governs the privacy of consumer financial information. Under the newly amended rule, firms are now trapped in a brutal 72-hour window.
Explain that window.
If a covered financial institution or any of their third-party service providers suffers a security breach that compromises customer data, the institution must notify the impacted clients within 72 hours of becoming aware of the incident.
72 hours. In corporate crisis time, 72 hours is nothing. That's a Friday evening to a Monday morning.
If your server gets hit with ransomware on a Friday night, you barely have time to figure out which systems are locked before the SEC clock runs out.
And the trap is hidden in how the SEC defines customer information. The definition is deliberately massive.
It covers not just your firm's direct clients, but any non-public personal information about customers of other financial institutions that happens to have been provided to you.
So if you are holding data that originated from UBS or Goldman Sachs and your system gets breached, the clock starts on that data too.
Yes. Because of this sweeping definition, firms can no longer wait for a breach to figure out what data they hold.
The regulation forces them to proactively map out all of their internal systems and, crucially, map out all of their vendor systems that touch this data.
If you haven't mapped the data architecture beforehand, you cannot possibly assess the scope of a breach and notify clients within 72 hours.
And the regulators offer zero leniency here. The sources noted a very specific detail that feels almost punitive. Government shutdowns do not pause SEC compliance.
It's explicitly stated in the guidance. Even if the federal government shuts down and SEC staff are furloughed, your compliance deadlines remain active.
You cannot use a government closure as an excuse for failing to notify clients or maintain your cybersecurity protocols, because the regulators will review your actions during that period once they return.
Which brings us to the actual physical mechanics of keeping the bad actors out of this ecosystem. We return to the vulnerability we discussed at the very beginning of this analysis.
The catering company on the yacht.
Yes, the 12-step supplier onboarding checklist. Reading through this section of the intelligence was profoundly eye-opening.
The industry consensus is that manual vendor onboarding isn't just inefficient, it is an open door to catastrophe.
The statistics in the research are sobering. 98% of organizations report working with at least one third-party vendor that has experienced a cybersecurity breach.
Furthermore, 79% of organizations have been targeted by payment fraud.
Onboarding a new vendor, whether it's a new software provider or a florist for an event, is not a simple data entry formality. It is the ultimate risk control checkpoint.
It is the exact moment where you either block the exposure at the perimeter or you inherit that risk into your own network.
So walk me through the critical mechanics of this 12-step process. Where does it actually begin?
It begins with absolute validation of identity using verified third-party data. This is the bedrock. You cannot just take the vendor's word for who they are.
If you get the legal entity name or the tax identification number wrong at step 1, every single compliance check downstream will fail.
Once identity is locked, you move to KYS. Know your supplier.
We hear a lot about KYC. Know your customer. Know your supplier flips the lens.
Exactly. KYS isn't just about verifying a name. It requires mapping out the beneficial ownership structures of the vendor. You have to pierce the corporate veil to see who actually owns the company.
You have to screen those owners against PEP lists, politically exposed persons, to ensure you aren't accidentally funding a foreign official.
You have to run automated sanctions checks and adverse media screens to ensure the vendor isn't embroiled in human trafficking or money laundering.
And then comes the money, because all of this compliance is ultimately about protecting the capital.
Step 6 is arguably the most sensitive point of vulnerability, validating banking details and account ownership.
This is where the catering invoice becomes a weapon. How does payment diversion fraud actually work in this scenario?
It's devastatingly simple and highly effective. A bad actor compromises the email account of the catering company. They don't shut the email down, they just watch it.
When the caterer sends their legitimate invoice to the family office, the bad actor intercepts it in transit.
They alter the PDF, swapping the caterer's legitimate bank routing number with the routing number of a fraudulent shell account they control, and then forward the email to the family office.
It looks completely legitimate. The email came from the caterer. The logo is right.
If the family office's onboarding team just manually types that routing number into their system without independently validating that the bank account actually belongs to the verified legal entity, they will wire millions of dollars directly to a criminal syndicate.
By the time the real caterer calls asking where their money is, the funds have been bounced through crypto mixers and are gone forever.
Which is why the onboarding checklist mandates independent bank validation. You can't just trust the PDF. And the risk assessment doesn't stop at cyber threats or fraud.
The checklist demands multidimensional risk analysis.
You have to view the vendor through multiple lenses simultaneously. You assess cyber risk, obviously, but you also assess ESG risk. Are the vendor's labor practices sustainable? Or are they using child labor in a supply chain, which could create a massive reputational crisis for the billionaire family?
You assess financial risk. A vendor might have impenetrable cybersecurity, but their balance sheet shows they are on the verge of bankruptcy.
If they go bankrupt halfway through a massive real estate project for your client, that is a catastrophic operational risk.
And the final piece of the puzzle, which I think most people completely ignore, is step 12. You have to measure risk at offboarding.
Most firms treat the end of a vendor contract as the end of the risk. It is the opposite. When you terminate a relationship with a supplier, the risk doesn't magically evaporate.
You must aggressively revoke all system access, recover any shared intellectual property, and demand cryptographic proof that the vendor has destroyed your client's data.
Failing to strictly offboard a vendor leaves invisible backdoors open into your entire network for years.
It is such an incredible structural irony. When you look at the ultra-wealthy lifestyle from the outside, it is defined by absolute freedom.
The private jets, the rare art acquisitions, the exclusive access to Monaco Grand Prix suites, the ability to bend the world to your schedule.
But that entire glamorous existence is entirely dependent upon and supported by the most unglamorous, rigid, hypo-bureaucratic checklists and mathematical compliance rules imaginable.
It is the invisible scaffolding that holds up the sky. The front of the house is velvet ropes, bespoke tailoring, and vintage champagne. But the back of a house is steel vaults, 12-step supplier verification matrices, and merciless mathematics.
You simply cannot deliver the illusion of effortless, bespoke service without the rigid infrastructure supporting it.
Which perfectly synthesizes the reality we've uncovered in this discussion. The ultra-high net worth world is defined by this central paradox. To provide clients with total flexibility, limitless access, and deep emotional intuition, the institutions serving them must operate with military-grade rigidity.
The rigidity is what makes the flexibility possible. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We've spent this time analyzing a system built exclusively for the top 0.1%.
But we also know that technology, specifically AI and machine learning, is rapidly driving down the operational costs of data analysis, risk mapping, and service delivery.
These systems are getting smarter, faster, and exponentially cheaper to run.
The math is changing.
Exactly. So the provocative question is this: how long will it be before the white glove concierge logistics, the proactive risk anticipation, and the bespoke portfolio management that are currently reserved strictly for the $30 million crowd become scalable?
How long until the software allows this level of anticipatory service to be deployed to the mass affluent or even the everyday middle class?
It's a compelling trajectory. If the technology can handle the massive back-office complexity at scale, the velvet rope might suddenly start letting a whole lot more people in.
Is definitely something to think about the next time you interact with your own bank's standard, highly efficient vending machine app.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the source material. Please email your questions to Derrick at derrickspruill.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
Credits for today's show: exec producer Derrick Spruill, lead writer Marylyn Trotter, graphics Eddie Montes Travis, music Thomas Bynum. Produced by Magnificent Workz Business Solutions.
Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Are you looking for an edge, flexible income, and immediate professional respect? Discover the hidden opportunity of becoming a public official with the book, Becoming a Notary by Derrick Spruill. This beginner's guide provides the universal roadmap to launch your new career. You will learn the core mission of deterring fraud, the essential tools of the trade, and exactly how to protect yourself while building a respected business. Get your copy of Becoming a Notary on Amazon, and step into a rewarding profession.
Robbery, I've been made into art, started from pottery, been at the bottom, I started from poverty, at his feet is where I